Okay, I think I'm going to get started, and then just as people start joining, they'll join in. So, good day, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for joining the final installment of the GPI webinar series for 2024. I'm Genevieve Altrani. I'm the Community of Practice Lead for GPI, and I have the honor of chairing the session today. We have an exciting webinar lined up showcasing the learnings from the GPI's Innovate Brick. This webinar will provide insight into how the Innovate team leverages the technologies from the ParentApp and ParentText programs to create a dual approach for addressing diverse community needs. The panel today consists of a wide range of experts, including the Director of INIDMS, some of the former Impact Activation Fellows from IDEMS, as well as the Parenting for Lifelong Health PhD students, bridging innovation and research. Before I introduce the speakers for today, there are a few housekeeping points that I'd like to highlight. So please note that this event is being recorded and will be made publicly available probably in the new year. You will be able to find it on our website. And to avoid any disruptions, only the speakers' cameras and microphones will be active during the session. If time allows, and we are hoping that it does, there will be a Q&A session at the end. But please feel free to enter any of your questions into the Q&A section. It's highlighted on the screen. It's the triangle, square, and circle. If you can just navigate to that on your screen, you'll find it there. We are aware that it's not always easy to find, so please just add your questions or comments into the chat. And now I'd like to give a warm welcome to our speakers. So with us, we have Azak Mabasu, who is the Director of INIDMS, who is also a key collaboration partner of the GPI based in Kenya. The main work of INIDMS is to leverage math and technology to create innovative solutions that improve lives and empower communities in Africa. We also have David Stern, who is the Innovate lead at the GPI, and he leads IDEMS International, which is a nonprofit focused on innovations in development, education, and mathematical sciences. David also oversees the development of digital parenting tools within the GPI, and this includes ParentText, ParentChat, and ParentApp. We also have Esme Tavunkel, who is a mathematical scientist at IDEMS and holds a PhD in mathematics from the University of Warwick. She leads the development of digital solutions under the Global Parenting Initiative. And then we have Rosalinda Janowski, who is a research assistant on the ParentApp for Teens project in Tanzania, where she co-led the design, implementation, and evaluation of the engagement optimization study. We have also Chiara Facciola, who drives the development of ParentText, a chatbot-based messaging intervention developed in partnership with Parenting for Lifelong Health. Then we have Jonathan Klapwyk, who is a research psychologist from South Africa and a senior research assistant with the GPI, focusing on the ParentApp for Teens program in Tanzania. And last but not least, we have Lily Clemens, who holds a PhD in statistics from Southampton University and is a data visualization expert, transforming complex data sets into compelling, interactive, and intuitive narratives. I'll now hand over to David to take us through today's proceedings.
Thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to be able to present about our learnings, which have been really emerging from the last 3 years of work within the Innovate Brick, as it's called. And a lot of this is interacting with capacity building. And so a lot of what I'm going to be drawing out, and the fantastic set of presenters here today are representing a lot of the different areas where we've been interacting with capacity building, building early career researchers in different ways. And so I'll bring that out as we go along. Really, the webinar is going to have these 6 main components, and I'm going to start by really digging in to what the Innovate Brick started with, which was a pair of interventions, digital interventions, which were digitizing the already established and successful and evidence-based Parenting for Lifelong Health program. It was recognized that digital interventions would enable these programs to scale, but it wasn't really clear how to go about this. And so back in 2019, I believe it was, we started discussing how to digitize these. And GPI has really been built around these initial thoughts, which were based on the fact that actually there are multiple ways to digitize. And it's not that one is better than the other, it's that they serve different purposes, different roles, different audiences. And so I'm going to highlight here ParentText and ParentApp and give a little bit of the journey, which mostly happens through GPI, and how the learning from these two together is more than the sum of their parts. And I will explain that a little bit more as we go forward. I'll start with ParentApp. Pilot, optimization, and RCT. This is really what a good research study should be like. And this is very much the approach and the drive we had, was to try and make sure that there was an evidence-based solution to digitizing these programs and to get them actually out to people in a way which was effective. And that sequence, which was a very research-focused sequence, took a long time, and it had some exceptional learnings along the way. The results which are coming out, for me, way beyond my dreams, my expectations. And we're not going to dig into those results now, but I strongly recommend, if you're not aware of the results from the Tanzania RCT, look them up. They're beyond our dreams, or beyond my dreams anyway. What I want to draw our attention to here is really the optimization study and the WASH app. Because the optimization study, this was, in our minds, critical, because we recognized that part of what was needed to be able to get good evidence within the RCT was to make sure that the engagement was there. If we didn't have engagement in the content, then we couldn't expect it to be impactful. And so it was really important that we made sure that the RCT was based on an intervention where the engagement was high. And the optimization study was key to actually achieving that. And we'll come back and we'll dig into this a bit more, because Rosalinda's with us. And so that is going to be something we'll dig into. But it wasn't enough. And I have to confess, I was really keen that in the RCT, we had not only engagement in the intervention, but we also wanted engagement in the control. We wanted it to be a very powerful control. And so we're very fortunate that one of our teams in Kenya, in Adams, they took the initiative to take it upon themselves to build a whole new app as a control, to make sure that we were actually, the intervention was the parenting app rather than just an app. And so there's a whole new app which was built, which I'm delighted to say was extremely popular. And this caused me great, it caused great worry within the research team, because it was so popular that there was a worry that it was going to be effective, and it was going to reduce the effectiveness of the intervention. But it all worked out well. The intervention was effective, and it was effective with an active control. Now, that is a starting point, and it's a fantastic starting point for a research approach. And what I love is that ParentText took a totally different approach. ParentText started by trying to get implementation. It tried to get out into the world. It happened during COVID that there was a real need to get parenting information out at scale. And there were efforts in the Philippines, in Malaysia, in South Africa, in Jamaica. And then the learnings from that led to a second version, ParentText 2.0. And there, Malaysia, South Africa, China, and Mexico had their own versions of this, trying to get out, testing this. And so this was a much more an implementation-focused approach. And what was fantastic was the interplay of learnings between, because the content behind these two interventions was the same, but the implementation was so different. And starting with a research focus and starting with an implementation focus really changed the mindset, and you got some really different learnings on both sides. Now, Within ParentApp, part of this interplay of learnings led to real innovation, and that led to us building structures which were reusable. And I'm delighted that Early Family Maths, EFM, was a partner who just took the infrastructure and built on it. And that then became a GPI study, a small study, led by the team in Kenya. But it was a fantastic addition which came out of the reuse of the technologies that were built for ParentApp. And that wasn't the only reuse. There's been the Facilitator app, which actually started off as an app to support the facilitators of ParentText in the implementation. And there's Parenting for Respectability, which the Ugandan team has been working really hard with the Kenyan partners to build this. And it's been a really exciting element of the Innovate brick of how the technology is getting reused through other partners and new partnerships. And this goes the same for ParentText. In particular, crisis text is beyond GPI, but it's where the essence of ParentText has been readapted to be rapidly deployed. And that idea of rapid deployment is something which is coming back with this interplay of learning into a lot of the other things we're building. ParentApp for Kids, that's a big study within GPI. And the way that they're building it has been not only interesting in the way that they've integrated in the Innovate team partner, Innodems, but it's also been interesting because there's been different efforts to do so. There's been another study outside of GPI or alongside GPI, which is in Kuwait, where they're also building a ParentApp for Kids. And our role to try and actually make sure these learnings are coming back from one to the other is something that we will talk about later. And finally, I want to sort of really come to the fact that ParentText may have started with implementation, but it is still research. And the randomized control trial, which has just happened in South Africa, and we're eagerly awaiting the results, learned from ParentApp and used the same idea of having an active control to build wash text, a whole nother implementation to be the control. It's been fantastic to see how our role in terms of the Innovate brick has often been to build on the learnings that are coming across these different interventions and these different approaches, whether we're starting with implementation focus or whether we're starting with research focus. It's been really great to see how the learnings from one have been able to feed into the other. And this has led to this sort of almost snowballing of initiatives and innovation, which is growing. I'm going to step back and I'm going to now dig into a few of the people who have been working on this. And I'm going to start with ParentText and Chiara with you, because it started with implementation. From the get-go, you were hit by multiple deployments, and that's been part of what you've been working with since ParentText started. And so maybe I'd just like to hear from you a little bit about how that experience was, having these different deployments on the go and the challenges that brought up.
Yeah, that was challenging for sure, but also very interesting to see. And I think the fact that we had to build most of the time in parallel for multiple countries, this really pushed us to build a system that would allow this localization to be as smooth as possible. Not super smooth, but still, we really had to build in such a way that we could have some sort of, let's say, global version, and then this global version could then be shared in an easy way with partners. So that pushed us to build systems to be able to, I think, share content in an easy way with partners so that they could independently customize it, and then we could then quickly fit it back into this general system that we were building, and having those different versions kind of in sync and not diverging too much. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to work on like 5 deployments at the same time.
Absolutely, and And this transition you had from the version 1 to ParentText 2.0, as it was then called, and then the other variants, that all fell out in some sense from this fact that actually those adaptations could be small or big, and you were able to have this adaptable approach.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think like all these version 1s, I think it was in 4 or 5 countries, and these really helped us redesign the intervention in a way that would be more engaging, but also we had a clear idea of what were the different key points, what we had to build for in order to make this adaptation smoother. Yeah,
absolutely, and to make it easier for partners to engage.
Yeah, definitely.
But you haven't just had challenges because of the multiple deployments. I mean, the RCT gave you its own challenges because it was quite popular.
Yeah, it was more popular than expected. I think I don't know if we can use the word viral in this case, but probably we're close to viral. Yeah, so we were expecting to engage people in maybe 1 month to reach our target of 20,000 users. And I think in the first 4 hours, we already had 10,000 that had joined. So this was really a stretch for our system. But yeah, we were quite kind of resilient. We were able to react quickly. But yeah.
And I think it was this, as you say, the way that as a team you were able to react to this rapid uptake of it. But it's also, we haven't got the results from the RCT yet, so we can't talk about the actual end results. But we can talk about the fact that, well, engagement has still been surprisingly high, even engagement after the incentives were removed. I mean, I was amazed to hear some of those results.
Yeah, definitely. I think, we were discussing maybe the fact that this of being part of a study could have a component in the engagement, but yeah, definitely. So I don't know if we should give more context on what happened exactly, but
I don't think we can. The results aren't out. We don't know anything. Nothing is known about the RCT yet, but it is exciting what's happened here. And the fact that this was a very low-cost RCT, deliberately aiming to try to use the the fact that the intervention can be low cost to try and see what is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Okay, I was going to just go to Lily very quickly, because if I'm not mistaken, actually the data coming out from these ParentText, initial deployments, this was one of the first tasks you were given when you joined IDEMS as an Impact Activation Fellow. Is that correct?
I mean, that's incorrect, because it was the first task I was given before I joined IDEMS as an Impact Activation.
Yes. True.
It was during my PhD when I was helping out alongside, well, not helping out, but during my PhD when I kind of picked up some IDEMS work. And then there's this first kind of deployment, which was that Malaysia, Tanzania, I can't even remember now, but this first deployment, and then one day there's another one, and then there's another one, and then one day there's also ParentApp, and I'm like, okay, this is a bit bigger than I was led to believe.
but I think part of what was so interesting about this is that being exposed to these different sort of deployments and the data coming in was a way of you also engaging with developing packages to be able to make the processes easier, to be able to get the data to come out in a smoother way. And you've now got a package related to Rapid Pro, the system which is used for ParentText.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And it came out in such a nice, natural way as well, because I guess as our deployments grew and as what we were doing grew, or as what Chiara and that side of people were doing on Rapid Pro grew, the kind of our packages got to grow alongside it. So I'm really happy with the time that with the when I came in, that I came in at that point because everything could kind of grow alongside it. And I can even see now that there's so much more potential there in these packages, and therefore there must be so much more potential in Rapid Pro for future.
Absolutely, and this is exactly as we now get into the sort of the studies which are coming out using the data which is coming out. There's so much more potential here. Carry on.
Oh no, I was going to say it's overwhelming how much data there is. If anything, it's kind of, if I had all the time in the world, I would love to kind of sit down and have a crack at it. But really overwhelming how much there could be to look at.
Absolutely, and this is one of the key things, that it sort of can change the way we think about using data in research when you have that overwhelming amount of data, which can be used almost as sort of qualitative case studies to follow through what individuals are doing within a study of thousands of people. And so there's some really interesting opportunities here and possibilities for research in the future to use this data. I'm going to move on because I'm really keen to dig into this optimization step. And this is, Rosalinda, this was your PhD study. It was a good chunk of it anyway, but it was really this element that once you started looking into engagement, you had nothing but layers of complexity. What was the experience like once you got stuck into this?
Such a good question, because I think so much of the optimization study was informed by the very sort of maybe not as rigorous as we would have liked previous stages of the research, and I don't think we'd really dug into engagement at those points. So we did feasibility piloting in South Africa, we did user testing, we did a much more rigorous pilot in Tanzania, and then we started the optimization study, and we hadn't gotten the full results from those stages yet, and we sort of made decisions based on talking to facilitators and our partners and best guesses and the literature. And so it was a really exciting part of the study, sort of on the one hand trying to be as rigorous as possible, and on the other hand just saying, like, we just need to do what we think is best over here, and then seeing how people were engaging based on the decisions we'd made. So deciding, for example, okay, we are not going to include phone calls because it's too, implementation wise it's maybe too complex and not cost effective, and so making those decisions and then seeing how parents were engaging in the decisions that we'd made for the optimization study. So I think that was really interesting. In terms of results, I think Lily was amazing helping with the dashboard and being very responsive to my continuous emails about can I see this, what is going on behind the scenes, how are people engaging. But we did see, it wasn't all positive. We did see a lot of dropout, and we didn't really have the system set up to actually respond to that. And I think the RCT, we learned a lot during the optimization phase of how to implement what we were testing better in the RCT. So I think there was a very iterative learning process throughout.
You've highlighted my key point here, that you had so many learnings beyond just the results. I mean, the results of your study were already really impressive, but it was those, almost less rigorous as you put it, but it's just observational learning
but still so important.
Of course, and led to the really powerful engagement in the RCT. I mean, I still can't believe there are over 90% completion rates within the RCT, which is unheard of in a digital intervention. But I'm afraid I give you almost entire credit for that, from these learnings and from this process, which was beyond just the results that you got and these observations. And as you said, it fed into the implementation of the RCT, and such an important component.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just the components that we had, chosen to include in the factorial that were so important. I think I must also obviously give huge credit to Inidims and Letitia and Artemis for being with me during the optimization study and being so supportive in terms of tech support and talking to parents and learning things that we would never have learned. And I think then taking that through to the RCT and thinking about how to do implementation better in the RCT. So I think the optimization study gave us a lot more than just an improved intervention package in terms of in terms of the factorial.
Yeah, exactly. This is the results of your study were good, and we used them in the RCT. But it is the learnings that were beyond just those results which made all the difference in my mind. And this is something which I find so difficult to quantify in terms of how you actually build the human connections between these studies. And you mentioned the InnoDems team, which we'll come back to with Zach later, and the important role they played in enabling those learnings to cut across.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Jonathan, I'm going to come to you because one of the things I loved about the approach here is that it wasn't just that when the RCT was finished, the studies were finished, because your study really kicked off straight after the RCT, the core intervention had finished.
Thanks, David. Yes, so one step is it's not after the RCT, it was after the first research study, so after the pilot, but pre-RCT. And it's also building on almost the other side of what Rosalinda was trying to do with optimizing engagement, was also trying to optimize the content. We're building an intervention based on an in-person program, and so it's become now an app, and seeing what is the best way that we can actually motivate parents to use the content in it for the actual effectiveness of what we want to change. And that kind of brought in what learning through play is, and building on the hypothesis that learning through play is a really good way of building relationships between parents and children, and then working with parents and families to use a participatory approach, because they will be the ones to answer what their relationships look like, to see what this does with adolescents, which is what we're trialing in the ParentApp intervention. So it was building all the knowledge that they had, and then working with items, especially with Esme a lot, and also with Clowns Without Borders, with Anna, seeing how we can take these learnings and knowledge of what learning through play might look like with a small handful of families across the Pan-African sample, and then putting them into the app and seeing what is the best way for them to engage with that. How can we actually use this content for them to stay in the intervention longer? So it's multifaceted on why we would try and achieve this, and then multi-layered within it of how can we do it the best possible way.
Absolutely. And the thing which I love about what you're sort of saying is that if we think about the ParentApp as a research intervention, it's time-bound. But if we think about this as something which is going to go out into the world, it isn't. It's something which is going to need to have this additional content to keep people engaged, to get people involved in a sort of different way. And this is really part of what you were sort of really starting the process of looking at this. And this is just a beginning in my mind, but it was so important that this was a part of the process which was happening in the research.
I would love to take credit for that, David, but yes, 100%. But actually, it was also feedback from participants in early phases, even pre the optimization study, where some families were speaking about that they do want more. They want to learn more. They want to understand more, that these amount of sessions wasn't enough. And that is also just truth of us adapting one intervention into a different modality. So this is just another way to show, if it's not an in-person program and there isn't this weekly thing where they have to go in person to try something, and we're doing digital components, that potentially there is space for a lot more content and a lot more ways for that content to be distributed or shared across the different groups. So yes, it can be something that people engage with for a very long time, where the constraints of in-person programs, that's just not feasible. So it opens a lot of possibilities, but those possibilities also take a lot of work in us optimizing, one, engagement like Rosalinda, and two, the content of it actually working and keeping them in it.
Absolutely. And it's a really good place to sort of move on to Esme, because this point that it's not these interventions aren't just standalone, they then sort of merge into each other. I think is really relevant for what's happened with some of the newer innovations coming out, such as ParentApp for Kids.
Yeah, thank you, David. So yeah, now to talk about two of the parent apps that arose or that were developed, I guess, after the Teens app, which is the one that we're talking about up to this point, is there's one under the GPI, which is the Kids project that's happening in Tanzania, which is a research-led project and is working towards an RCT. But in parallel, we have another project which is happening in Kuwait, which is collaboration with PLH. And those two projects started off with a very consistent single structure where they were both going to live in, but they slowly deviated, and we currently have similarities and differences, which leads me back a bit to something that Chiara was saying before with her the request for localizations and how she had to make sure that she can have those different versions existing. So a very similar problem, I guess, challenge, opportunity, I should say. I don't want to make it sound. The problem in the mathematical sense, a fun thing to do, we have is to build systems that enable easy management of those deployments that share similarities but are different in other ways.
Absolutely, and I think this is a really nice example where there is this inversing, but in some sense, on the ParentText side, it started with those multiple deployments and that challenge. Whereas on the ParentApp side, the original focus was the research and the RCT. And now you're coming into that challenge and finding the same components and the learning that you've got. You mentioned the learning from Chiara on this and the way these things happened. So yeah, it's been great. And so the one of the things which I want to just draw out from you as well is that it's not just within ParentApp now. There's so many different uses of the same technology which are emerging. I mentioned early family maths, parenting for
There's also early school maths arising, actually.
There's early school maths which is arising. There's now, and I think Zach might talk to them using this for in other contexts again, and it's just
conflict forecast.
Oh yes, that's right, crisis forecast, and so on. And so there's this reusable technology which is now coming out, which was a gap because it's not easy to build these apps, and gradually it is getting easier. Do you want to just say something about sort of some of the complexities that you've come across and how this is now getting easier? Or is that too hard?
I can start talking about that. So I guess what I want to say is we're building an app builder. And so the part that I'm mainly working on is the middle layer that takes in content and then does some magic and can display it in an app format. And we're currently one kind of recent progress is having different versions of a sidekick, which is simplifying the view for authors. And so I think that's like making our life easier and hopefully working towards that scale and scalability that many more people can use it.
Absolutely, and I think it's this 3-layer separation where you talked about your layer as being this interface between the app. You're not actually programming, you're not writing code, whereas so there's the app developers, if you want, who are writing the underlying system. You're sitting in this intermediary layer, and then there's the authors who we're trying to make it easier for them as well. And there's sort of that 3-layer separation is, I think, what makes this really powerful as we go forward. And I think it is your role at sort of holding a lot of the logic as opposed to the actual code, which I think makes this a bit different from other systems which work in this way.
Yeah, and very enjoyable for me to do.
Yeah, yeah, great. Okay, let me move on. I'm conscious I wanted to spend not much more than 5 to 10 minutes before we go into the discussion, and I've got to bring Zach into this. Zach, InnoDems has been central to all of this work, and we wrote InnoDems in partly to be building the capacity of the InnoDems team to support this, but partly also as part of a sustainability approach, so that InnoDems can take over a lot of the roles that IDEMS has played within GPI, supporting partners to build these innovations. Do you want to just talk briefly about sort of the team, how their capacity has been built, and also some of the opportunities which are emerging?
Yeah, thank you so much, David. And as you have mentioned, InnoDems has collaborated with IDEMS International and other organizations working within GPI. And this collaborative ecosystem has allowed InnoDems to take advantage and leverage on the expertise, resources, and networks, leading to building the capacity of our staff specifically to author these apps that are being mentioned and others. So first, we identified and have nurtured gifted individuals. Some of them were just coming out of college with little experience or no technical experience. And they have been working, for example, on the ParentText and the parent apps that have been mentioned before. And through working on these apps, they have developed skills in creating these apps using the spreadsheet technology. And now we are getting to a stage where they are translating these skills into developing other solutions. Ultimate has been mentioned before, and she's now leading the development of an app called Conflict Focused App in collaboration with another group called Econ AI. And what this app does is that it is designed to predict and map areas of where there is high risk of conflict using socioeconomic data, climatic data, and historical data that comes from newspaper articles. And this really highlights how investing in local talent can foster innovation and create solutions that are relevant to the community needs. Secondly, it is not just the conflict focused app, but we have also created or supported the creation of various digital tools addressing various needs. So another example is the Early Family Math app, which is an app that allows parents with young children to have fun and free resources that are designed to help them to learn math together through play and have a quality interaction with their parents. So it has like stories, it has puzzles and activities so that these families can enjoy together. The Wash app has been mentioned. I will not again go into that, but that was also developed internally based on the transfer of skills from creating and also working on ParentApp and ParentText. And this really demonstrates how this technology of building these apps is being used, used to translate into other apps. And lastly, it is not just individuals that have been empowered, but within InnoDems now, we've created this pipeline of skilled professionals who can contribute to future innovations, but also they can build the skills of others so that we have this lasting impact and also a sustainable solution of just growing capacity locally to be able to create these apps.
No, thank you. Thank you, Zach. And I want to just be clear that the creation of the apps is certainly one of the things which has come out. But there's been interactions with Lily on the data side, and there's been interactions, across the board. I mean, the InnoDems team was mentioned as the implementation partner because they went to the field and they helped just the technical debugging. There were so many different facets to this collaboration and the role that InnoDems played, which I think have helped to build the team that you've now got, which is, as you said, finding other opportunities or creating opportunities for itself. And it's something where, for you as the person leading InnoDems, what's the hope for these, beyond the apps, the skills-based approach you're taking and the opportunity to bring more people in building these skills?
Yeah, thank you. So I think the opportunity that this creates is that because locally we are embedded within the communities, the user-centered approach of, for example, developing these technologies really emphasizes the need to be able to create solutions that meet the local needs. It could be through technology or beyond technology, but the fact that we work with the communities, we understand those communities, and therefore we are able to work together with those communities to create solutions to problems that are existing to specific context and also to the preferences within those communities.
Absolutely. And it is this idea that being embedded in the communities, the people that you're training up who build the skills embedded in their own communities are building the solutions for those communities. And they're not needing to do so from scratch because they're part of something bigger. But it is this idea that sort of these local opportunities are emerging related to skills within the community rather than outsiders coming in, which is fantastic. And I really congratulations to the InnoDems team and to the role they played within this. It's been a pleasure working with you. I'm going to finish here and hand back to the GPI as we thank the partners in the GPI more broadly and move into questions.
Thanks so much, David, and thanks to all the presenters for sharing your insights and also just sharing how you've gone about navigating a lot of the challenges and finding solutions to those. Yes, we'd like to just say thank you to our partners and donors, as you can see on this slide. Just a few of them are mentioned there. Well, most of them are mentioned there. And then moving on to the Q&A section, we do have some time. We have about 15 minutes. And so I'm just going to go over to the chat and just check if there are any questions. There aren't any there. We could actually just open it up because I see there aren't any questions in the Q&A either, and we do have time for that. Yes, Peter, go ahead. Hopefully you can unmute. Let's just see. I think, there we go. Peter, you can go ahead now. You just need to unmute.
Oh, can you unmute now, Peter? I think your status has changed.
Yeah.
Yes, it just changed just then. I was just going to say, all the chat is locked to anyone who's not a contributor. So I only just got access to the chat when I put my hand up and someone changed my status.
Thank you for that, Peter. The comms team should be on it as you speak.
Okay.
But let's just see if we can do that quite quickly. Maybe some additional reflections from the team, David?
Yes, I'm afraid I can always have additional reflections, and there is one element which I if there aren't other questions, I'd just like to go into a little bit more, which is this idea of impact activation, which was in the title of our talk. And one of the things which I've really appreciated through the Innovate role within GPI is the way that a lot of the things which I feel are impactful, they can be traced back to something else within GPI, which is coming from somewhere else. And it's this cross-learning which is happening. And even within our team, it's the fact that we take people who have a specific skill set and we ask them to sort of do something which is outside their comfort zone, outside their specific skill set, but which relies on them using underlying skills that they have. I've also appreciated the fact that with the young researchers coming through, a lot of the time they've been put into these situations where they're not just part of their small research study, but their research study is really part of something bigger. And I think this is so important in terms of actually, whether it's for young researchers coming through, whether it's for members of our team that are coming in with a specific skill set and then brought into something else, going beyond what your speciality is and working across in something bigger as part of something bigger is such a powerful experience. And I love that within GPI, there are the individual studies, but they are all part of something bigger. And that cross-learning is something which I feel is being encouraged in GPI through these webinars and other elements. But it's something which is one of the great powers, I think, of a research program more than a research project. And I just wanted to bring that out as something I really appreciate from the Innovate perspective, because a lot of our big learnings have come across from multiple sources.
Jamie, go ahead.
Thanks so much, David. This has been great and webinar from everybody on the INIDEMS and IDEMS team, and also from the contribution from GPI scholars. It does speak to the power of having a program of research that can make connections across different projects that would have normally been very disparate, and probably the way that the innovation worked and learned from each other would have been much harder and probably taken a lot more time to have that kind of rapid and responsive innovation. And I think that in many ways the team from IDEMS and INIDEMS drove that connectivity, which was an essential component to that. But also, I mean, it's a vision of also the conversations that we had with the Lego Foundation and Oak Foundation to show that kind of commitment to understanding the value of having an integrated research program aimed at scaling playful parenting, digital and hybrid interventions, and how we were going to learn from these different research projects and initiatives, and how that was going to kind of inform the wider field. And I think that the purpose of these webinars, obviously, but also the purpose of the ongoing conversation that is going to expand and continue beyond just the GPI is really going to be essential in building a real learning of practice around digital innovation to increase learning through play and reduce sexual violence. So I just want to thank you and the team for leading that, and also being like most of the time these kind of there wouldn't be an innovate theme in a project. It would be like, we're just going to get the tech people over here to do the work, and they'd be like brought in really late in the process, and having it be a core theme, but also to have the role of items on the executive team and in the decision-making process, even the proposal process, was, I think, part of the reason why we were able to have that kind of synergistic innovation. And I think that one of the lessons that we've learned is that we could even do more about that. Like, the more engagement that you have with the innovators in the design process of the actual research studies, the better, the more responsive, the more chances for learning are available. And I think that's something that is a definite lesson that we want to bring to the field, as the field is going more and more into this work around how we can reduce the load on parents and families and providers through technological innovation across not just parenting, but like other innovative, other social intervention initiatives. So thanks again.
But no, thank you. And I want to just highlight from innovation side, it is so different to just be brought in to be told, this is what you need to do, this is what we're going to do, and to, as you say, actually have a seat at the table, to be part of the leadership, being able to sort of say, well, couldn't we build a link here? Isn't this related to what we're learning there? And actually to be seeing the whole, to be part of the whole, is just a totally different experience. And it really does open doors. And I think there is something about that we're seeing, even just with this sort of the results from the optimization study, where it's not just the formal results, but it is the learnings, the informal learnings which were brought through. That's where I think this is so important and so powerful. And with the digital, there is something to that the details really matter, and that being able to support across studies has been such a privilege. We've loved this. It's been wonderful to be part of.
Thanks so much, David. Any other questions? I'm sure people can raise their hand now, or actually just unmute. Pop your question in the chat. Still have about 7 minutes. Peter, go ahead.
Kind of a general question for whomever would like to answer, but are there anything particularly the kind of the one or two things that you're particularly excited about doing next for anyone? You know, we've come this far. What are the one or two?
You can't ask me then, I'll have too many. Let's ask the others. Zach, do you want to start? Can I put you on the spot?
Yes, I can try. Specifically on the early family math app, I look forward to the potential that this has, because we just concluded a pilot of the app, and the results are the indications of the results are quite exciting. So I'm looking forward to an opportunity to maybe scale the use of the app across communities, across different countries, across parents, and then to the research around it, so that it can like inform decisions on further development of the app, and so that parents and kids and whoever is using it can make the most out of the app. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. And I will just say a little bit more about that, because in the results, it's not just that it's been found to be useful in terms of increasing engagement in early maths. It's also been found useful in terms of increasing engagement between parent and child. And that's something which is really interesting. And I think Jonathan spoke to this about the playful learning and the role that playful learning has potentially in creating parent-child engagement. And so it's, I think, a really exciting piece of work which has just started. It was a emerging trends fund within GPI, but it's a really exciting little piece of work. Would anyone else like to come in?
Yeah.
I can go next. I guess in the short-ish term, I'm short-ish, maybe short without ish. I'm excited about seeing the Kuwait Kids app coming together. That's like going under quick development at the moment. And so we're seeing lots of changes and improvements by the day. So it's a really exciting period for us. And then on the longer term, I'm looking forward to improving our systems and increasing our capacity, both in human ways, but also in our system supporting that, so that we can continue to expand and have more app-based projects.
I'm also happy to jump in. But David, I feel similar to you that there's just too many things to look forward to. We've been working on these programs. We've been working on these programs for quite a while now, and we're actually coming to the end of the final phase of data collection for the trial. So it's really going to be the point to see if all of our hard work actualizes into seeing the effects that we really want, and also all these smaller learning sides on what is learning through play after people engage with it, and is it a mediator or moderator to other outcomes, and can we actually link learning through play and the reduction of sexual violence? So there's a lot of excitement, and similar to Lily, I think we're going to have an enormous amount of data to sift through. So yeah, I think that's what I'm really keen for. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Peter, for such a good question. I'm conscious we're almost out of time. Are there any last thoughts?
There's still nothing in the Q&A or in the chat, so maybe we could wrap up.
Great. Well,
thanks so much to the team not just the team, for all of the speakers today for sharing their insights. And to remind everyone that the recording will be available shortly, probably in the new year, because we have reached the end of the year. And yeah, take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the new year for our next webinar.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Great
Bye-bye.
presentations.
Cheers. Bye.